Okay, good morning guys. It's very, very early in the morning here. There was an incident last night here in Prickly Bay, and the Prickly Bay creeper was again creeping around the dark anchored boats in the dark. Only this time I lit him up with a spotlight, and I know what he looks like. So last night I'm up on deck as I always am, cooling off in the breeze under the stars, listening to music. There's no moon again tonight. So last time the Prickly Bay stalker was out stalking the anchorage was about a month ago. Same conditions, no moon, dark anchorage, very calm. He comes out in his little dinghy. Quietly and slowly he creeps and circles around boats that look like they have nobody on them. Last night, I'm up on deck as usual, under the stars, listening to music, when I see a dark shadow in the distance, slowly creeping along, about 100 meters away. There's a dark boat beside me off the port side, and he kind of slowly circles around that boat, and then I watch him slowly start going behind Wildchild, staying about 100 meters away in the dark shadows. But I keep an eye on the shadow, and I see when the shadow gets behind Wildchild, to my blind spot where the dinghy is, he turns and he starts coming up towards the back of Wildchild, to my blind spot, to the transom underneath and behind the dinghy. This time I realize, hey, I've seen this before. I run down below and I grab a spotlight, and I come up and I light him up with the spotlight, and he veers off, guns his dinghy engine, and he zooms off into the darkness. He zooms off about 200 meters away, and I follow him with the spotlight. He goes behind a dark, unlit yacht about 200 meters away, and then I lose track of him. I turn off the light, and then I sit there and I wait. A minute or two later, he comes quietly creeping out from behind that boat and starts creeping back out again towards me at the back of the anchorage. I light him up immediately because I was watching. This seems to piss the guy off, and rather than run home into the darkness, he turns and he guns his engine and he charges straight towards me. He zooms up right, like within 10 feet of the side of my boat. I keep him lit up with the flashlight the whole time. He comes up beside me and he says, "Do you got a problem with me?" And I say, "Yeah, I do. Why are you creeping around the anchorage in the dark with no lights on your dinghy? You know you're supposed to have dinghy lights on at night so you don't get run over. Where are your dinghy lights?" He says, "Mind your own business." I say, "Well, what are you doing out here? Like, what are you looking for? Where's your boat?" He says, "Fuck you, mind your own business." I say, "Well, tell me the name of the vessel that you come from. What boat are you on? What boat are you looking for? Maybe I can help you find it." He says, "Fuck you," and he guns his engine and he zooms off into the darkness. So I don't recognize him, I don't know who he is, but now I've seen him and I've heard him, so I know what he looks like and I know what he sounds like. It's early the next morning and we're gonna go on the dinghy to hunt for him, because his dinghy's gotta be somewheres. What we know is that it's about a 70-year-old white guy, very big, bushy white beard that's unkempt. He wore a dark ball cap low over his eyes in the dark. He had on a dark jacket and pants. And he was an English-sounding guy, but like he had a slight British or South African accent to him. 70-year-old white guy, kind of grizzled. So it's a cruiser stalking the anchorage. He really made a tactical error when he came up to confront me, and he got irritated with the spotlight, because now I know what he looks like. But more importantly, I got a really good look at his dinghy. He's got a long white plastic tube extension on his engine, like on the tiller handle of his engine. He sits in the front of his dinghy, and with this like 3-inch piece, like a 3-foot long piece of 3-inch white plastic pipe attached to his throttle engine, he can sit at the front of the dinghy to control it. I will recognize the dinghy. It's not a big bay, and the dinghy's gotta be somewheres right now. So I'm going to launch the dinghy early this morning and we're going to go try to find him. I want to know what boat harbors the Prickly Bay Creeper.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So let's get started with priority traffic. Anything health, safety, security, navigation, lost and found. If you have that kind of traffic, please come in now.
Wild child, wild child.
Wild child, thanks for sending twice. Go ahead.
Good morning. If you've ever heard the expression, 2 is a coincidence and 3 is a pattern, last night the Prickly Bay Creeper was out again in the anchorage creeping around. As always, I sit up on deck after dark to look at the stars and cool off in the evening breeze. This is the 3rd time on a dark moonless night when the anchorage is calm. Somebody in a dinghy comes creeping around in the back of the anchorage, slowly circling boats that look like they have nobody on them. Break. As I sat on my deck and I watched this dinghy in the dark with no lights on it slowly creeping around boats around me, I watched as it slowly circled around behind me to my blind spot and then turned to come up towards my transom, towards my dinghy. I recognized this pattern, so I ran down below and I grabbed a spotlight and I lit the boat up. They veer off, gun their engine, and zoom off into the darkness. They go hide behind a boat off my port side, about 200 meters away, and I turn the light off. Break. About 2 minutes later, the same dinghy comes out from behind that boat and begins creeping the anchorage again. Again, I light them up with my spotlight, only this time it upsets the person, and they throttle it up and they charge after me, and they come right up to the side of my vessel to begin yelling at me. Break. The guy comes up, and he comes about 10 feet off my port side, and I'm shining the flashlight on him, so I got a good look at him in the dinghy. He says, "Do you have a problem with me?" And I say, "Yeah, where are your dinghy lights? You shouldn't be creeping around the anchorage in the dark with no dinghy lights. It's not safe." He snarls at me, "That's none of your business." I said, "Well, what are you doing out here? Like, what are you looking for?" He says, "F off and mind your own business." I said, "Well, where's your boat? Like, what is your boat name? What vessel are you from?" He says, "F you," and he throttles it up and he guns off into the darkness. Break. The Prickly Bay Creeper made a tactical error when he came up to me into the light. So I got a good look at him. It's a cruiser. It's an old white man with a big scruffy bushy white beard. The distinguishing feature on his dinghy is that he had a white plastic tiller extension handle on his dinghy engine, so he could sit at the front. This morning I wandered around Prickly Bay Anchorage and I found that dinghy tied up behind a vessel called SV Aurora from Texas, sort of anchored behind Camus and near that green and yellow boat up at the base of the cliffs. I've reported the incident to the Coast Guard. This is the third time that I have caught somebody creeping around the back of Prickly Bay Anchorage in the dark. Wild Child out.
Jolly Bob.
Jolly Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, morning, Si. This guy should write a book. It wasn't the dinghy he's referring to, it was mine. And the reason I was creeping around the anchorage in the dark was the battery had gone on my torch and I couldn't find my boat because it was very dark last night. This guy shone a light directly on me from about 400 yards away. I was nowhere near his boat at the time and he persisted to put it on my face, blinding me. This is an extremely stupid thing to do. He was not underway, he was not on navigation, I was, and he was obstructing me. I had nothing to do with him other than to go up to his boat and tell him what I thought of his behaviour. So take all your suspicions and all your nonsense and go elsewhere with it. If you want to know where I was, last night I was in the Dickie Bar with friends. Excuse me for my slight angry tone, Si, but, you know, I really get fed up with people who make up stories like this. Jolly Bob.
And like, why didn't you just say that last night? Like, why were you way out there going that way, and when I lit you up, you turned around and came this way?
I was looking for my boat. That's all I was doing. I'd lost it. I'd been in the tiki bar.
What's the tiki bar?
Prickly Bay Marina.
Oh, at the marina there.
Yeah.
Okay.
With friends. I went back to the boat down there. Very dark.
Yeah.
I came up from there and I didn't find the boat. So I went past it.
And like why didn't you just say that last night? I would have given you a light. I would have been more than helpful. You were very aggressive.
You blinded me with the damn thing, you know. I got a bit cheesed up about that, you know.
You just I pissed you off.
Yeah. And I was going to find her. I mean, it wasn't a problem. I was just poodling around at 4 knots, you know, like, I'm not doing the arm. So that's all there was to it.
So, like, you thought your boat was way over there. You just got disoriented.
It was so dark, I got slightly disorientated.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
yeah.
This is the nighttime view from Jolly Bob's boat, looking south towards Wild Child. You can see in the nighttime scene there are plenty of lights. There are 2 boats with blue steaming lights. He accidentally motored slowly south past both blue lit boats out into the open ocean because he couldn't find his boat, which he would have known was north of the blue lit boats. This may shock you to hear, but human beings lie. When criminals do bad things, they never admit it, and they never openly say, yeah, you caught me, I did it. People lie.